All right, welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something today that's got everybody talking. Trump, back in the White House, and what he did on day one.
First day back, yeah. Big stuff.
Big stuff. We've got some serious reading material to go through, articles from Al Jazeera, the New York Times, and some really sharp analyses on top of that.
People want to know what's going on.
They do, and by the end of this deep dive, you'll know exactly what Trump's up to and why everyone's freaking out about it.
It really is fascinating. Everyone was wondering, what's he going to do? Those tariffs, he talked about them so much during the campaign.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting some major, fireworks, maybe a huge announcement, tariffs on everybody.
A big splash.
Right. But it looks like he's going for something, I don't know, a little more subtle.
Yeah, more measured. He didn't do those day one tariffs.
He didn't.
Instead, executive order sets things up for potential tariffs later.
So more like getting ready rather than actually firing.
Exactly.
Right.
Strategic. It's a phased approach. Gives him some room to negotiate,
Makes sense. Like he's got options.
Exactly. And, some people are saying this could be because of his advisors, like Scott Bessent. Could be heading up Treasury.
Bessent, okay.
He likes to plan things out, economic policy, not just jump in. Might explain why it's not instant tariffs, more like a slow burn.
Interesting. Okay, so not a tariff free-for-all right away, but doesn't mean he's forgotten about them, right? What's in this executive order? What's he actually saying?
Well, it names a bunch of countries.
Yeah.
But the big ones. China, Canada, Mexico.
Okay, the usual suspects.
Pretty much. With China, it all goes back to that 2020 trade deal. Apparently, didn't work out how the Trump folks wanted.
Right, that deal.
China was supposed to buy loads of American stuff, agriculture, manufactured goods, everything. But didn't hit the targets.
So now Trump's like, okay, China, time to pay up.
Basically. And to really make sure they pay attention to these tariffs, guess what? He's making a whole new part of the IRS.
Hold on, what? A new IRS?
Yep. External Revenue Service, they're calling it. And its job, collecting those tariffs. Trump even said it's going to bring in a substantial sum of money from foreign sources.
Wow, a whole new IRS. That's a pretty clear message that he's serious about this.
Oh, yeah. No messing around.
Okay, but what about Canada and Mexico? What'd they do?
Well, the order says they're reviewing all the trade deals. That big one between the U.S., Canada, Mexico, it's all up for grabs now.
Back to the drawing board.
Looks like it. Trump wants to change those deals, and the threat of tariffs, that's his bargaining chip.
Feels like we're on the edge of a trade war, doesn't it?
It could definitely go that way. And the thing is, other countries aren't just sitting there waiting. They're getting ready to hit back.
It's retaliation, so they're threatening tariffs too.
You got it. Canada, Mexico, EU, they've all got lists ready. What they might put tariffs on if the U.S. does it first. For example, Canada, they're saying maybe Florida orange juice, Tennessee whiskey, and get this, Kentucky peanut butter.
Peanut butter.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of out of left field.
Yeah.
But it does make it feel more real, doesn't it?
It does. You start thinking, those things are going to get expensive. And then, bam, a trade war feels a lot closer to home.
Right. It's not just numbers and economics anymore. It's what you buy, what you eat, how much you got to pay for it.
Real world stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've got potential tariffs on the horizon, but what else is on Trump's mind? Well, it seems like he's got big plans for energy, too, doesn't he?
He does. Huge shift from Biden.
Complete opposite.
And he did it on day one.
Day one. National energy emergency declared. Biden was all about getting away from fossil fuels.
Right, that was his whole thing.
But Trump, he's going in the other direction. Big time.
What does this energy emergency actually mean?
It means Trump wants more oil and gas production. Right here in the U.S., he even brought back that old line, drill, baby, drill.
That takes me back.
Energy independence, that's the goal. Even if it means drilling in places that were off limits before.
Sounds like the environment might not be top priority anymore.
That's the feeling I get. And on top of that, he wants to refill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. It got pretty low under Biden.
Right, I remember hearing about that.
So it's tariffs, potential trade wars, and a huge push for fossil fuels.
Yeah, day one back in office was definitely not a quiet one. But what does all this mean for everyone, for real people?
Good question. Let's unpack that a bit. Starting with what these tariffs could mean for you and me. What happens if they actually go into effect?
Okay, let's get into that. What are the consequences?
Well, first thing, probably prices going up.
Here we go.
Those tariffs, they get passed down to us, the consumer. So we end up paying more for stuff that comes from other countries.
So like electronics from China, fruits and veggies from Mexico, maybe even, I don't know, that Canadian peanut butter.
Exactly. And that's just the start.
It's never just the start, is it?
Never. It's like a ripple effect. It's not just about higher prices. The whole economy can feel it.
Okay, so how does that work?
Well, think about it. Some things get more expensive.
Right.
Because of the tariffs. So that means companies here in the U.S. making those same kinds of things, they might start doing better. At least here in the U.S., they'll be cheaper compared to the imports.
So some American companies could benefit, but doesn't that also mean some jobs might disappear? Like, what about businesses that need those imported things, or if other countries put tariffs on our stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's complicated. You got winners and losers. It's hard to know exactly how it'll all shake out.
A big tangled mess.
Kind of. But one thing's for sure, these tariffs, they could really mess with global trade. And that creates those winners and losers we were talking about.
It all comes back to that. All right, so it's not just about money in the economy, right?
Nope.
It's about how countries get along, too. If the U.S. does this, what about our relationships with other countries?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it's something we're going to dig into a lot more in the next part of this deep dive.
Sounds good. Can't wait to get into that.
Yeah, things could get a little rocky with some of our big trading partners. China, Canada, Mexico, Tensions could escalate. Maybe even a full-blown trade war.
Trade war doesn't seem good. What would that actually look like?
Basically, they put tariffs on our stuff, we put tariffs on theirs, back and forth, each side trying to hurt the other's economy.
So what, just prices go up even more?
That's part of it. But it can also mess up supply chains. Businesses can't get what they need. And eventually, everyone's economy starts to slow down.
Sounds like no one really wins.
Most of the time, no. Plus, it's not just about the money. Trade wars, they can hurt relationships between countries,
Yeah.
Create this, distrust.
Yeah, a lot of bad blood. So, okay, that's the trade stuff. But what about energy? Drill, baby, drill, right?
Right. Big changes there, too. There's a lot of consequences shifting back to oil and gas like this.
Big consequences, for sure.
It could mean cheaper energy for us, at least for a while. But for the environment, that's a different story.
Because more drilling, more pollution, right?
Yeah. Exactly. More greenhouse gases. Not good for the climate. And then there's the whole issue of drilling in places that are really sensitive, like Alaska. Trump wants to open up federal land there for oil and gas.
Alaska, that's a big deal.
Huge. It's got these amazing ecosystems, really delicate balance.
A lot of people aren't going to like that.
Oh, yeah. A lot of environmental groups are pushing back, saying it could wreck the wildlife, the whole ecosystem.
So it's like, we want energy, but do we want it at that cost?
Tough question. Trying to find the balance between energy independence and taking care of the planet.
Not easy. And what about renewables? All this focus on oil and gas. Is there still room for clean energy?
That's the worry, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels like they're getting left behind.
Some people think all this oil and gas talk is going to scare off investors in clean energy, slow down the whole transition to a sustainable future.
That's what we need, though, right? A sustainable future.
It is. And honestly, it feels like we're at a crossroads, not just for America, but for the whole world. The choices we make now, they're going to have a huge impact on the global economy, the environment, even just how countries get along.
That's a lot of pressure.
It is. It's a lot to think about.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, anything you'd like our listeners to really remember?
A few things. First, things are unpredictable right now. These moves Trump's making, with trade, with energy.
Lots of unknowns.
Lots of unknowns. Things could get messy. Second thing, these issues are all tangled up together, Not simple. The choices we make now, they have consequences down the road.
Ripple effect, yeah.
Exactly. And last thing, stay informed. Talk about this stuff. The more we all understand what's going on, what the risks are, the better choices we can make.
Couldn't agree more. All right, so heading into the last part of our deep dive, here's something to think about.
Get me.
Trump, he clearly wants America to be number one in trade, in energy.
America first.
Right. But what's the price tag for that? For us and for everyone else?
Good question. A really important one.
We've talked about a lot, haven't we?
We have.
Trade wars brewing, fossil fuels making a comeback. And it seems like Trump's whole plan for America, well, it's very America first, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It's all about putting American interests first. Even if it means, I don't know, maybe ruffling some feathers with other countries or, backing away from some of those global agreements like the climate stuff.
Right. And it's interesting because some people They hear that and they think, yeah, America, strong, in charge.
The leader.
Exactly. But then there's that other side where you have to wonder, what happens down the line if we only think about ourselves?
The long-term consequences.
Exactly.
It's a tough one. Like, yeah, maybe we get cheaper gas and more jobs right away by drilling more.
Short-term wins.
But are we just getting stuck with fossil fuels even longer? Will it be even harder to switch to cleaner energy later?
Makes you think. And what about the rest of the world? If America goes its own way, stops being so involved, does that make things less stable?
It's a possibility. A lot of people believe that a strong America, one that's active in global affairs, that helps keep things peaceful. You know? Keeps order.
Keeps everyone in line.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And if America steps back, that could leave a void. And then who fills it? Maybe countries that aren't so friendly, maybe more conflict.
So big consequences, not just for us, but for everybody.
Exactly. This isn't just an American story.
It's a global one.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to talk about it, to think about these choices, the good and the bad that can come from them. What kind of future are we making, not just for us, but for, our kids and grandkids?
It all matters.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we've done a good job today of showing just how complex all this is. There's no easy answers, right? It takes careful thinking, making sure we're really informed.
It does. And, it's easy to just go with the headlines, the catchy slogans. But we have to dig deeper. Look at all sides, understand what we're really getting into.
And talk to each other.
Exactly. Have these conversations, figure out the best way forward, together.
Well said.
All right, as we wrap this whole thing up, any last thoughts you want to leave our listeners with?
Just this. Trump being back, it's a huge change.
For America, for the world, we're still figuring out what it all means.
A lot of unknowns.
A lot of unknowns, but it's a time of, possibility. And uncertainty, for sure. It's up to all of us to stay informed, think critically, and decide what kind of future we want.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. And remember, stay curious.